Would I be the asshole if I broke things off with a guy because he wouldn't drive me home? I'll keep things simple. I, 21 female, have been going out with a guy, 23 male, for 2 months or so. We've been on maybe 4 or 5 dates. He lives in the town over from me. I live in a college town that relies mostly on bikes and buses for transportation. Most students don't have cars, including me. We made plans on Tuesday to go to this bar with mini golf in his town. He said we could meet at 7, but that he couldn't pick me up as he got off work at 6. His town is about a 30-minute drive from mine, and that was fine, and I made arrangements to take the bus. Note that I've never been to this part of his town before. Anyways, I take 2 buses and get there at around 7:15, and we have fun. I drink a bit, and he doesn't drink. I feel like this is important to mention since I assumed he wasn't drinking since he would be driving me back home. At around 11, we decide to wrap things up, and he says goodnight and that we'll plan something later. I, confused, asked if he was driving me home. He said no, that he was too tired to after a 6-hour shift. Now I'm panicking a little, since he won't drive me and the buses don't go that late between our towns. I tell him that the buses aren't running anymore, and he sort of just shrugs it off. I asked him why didn't he drink then, and he just said that he wasn't feeling it and had work tomorrow. The only option I had left was an Uber, so I tell him that I'll take an Uber. The issue with the Uber is that the price was quite high, and I don't have that much money anyways. He says okay, and leaves after saying goodnight, which I felt was another red flag. We were in a public plaza kind of area, and I felt quite unsafe sitting there all alone at close to midnight. I wish he would have stayed until the Uber at least arrived, but luckily the rest of the night passed without incident, except for me being like $50 poorer from the Uber. I've been thinking about it, and I just felt very uncared for. Refusing to drop me off and not really caring about how I got home, and then just letting me wait all alone for the Uber for 10 minutes in what felt like a shady area? Would I be the asshole for not seeing a guy anymore for this reason? Edit to add, to answer some questions that I'm seeing pop up. 1. I did not know that the buses would not be running this late. The buses around my town run until midnight, and I assumed wrongly that the buses between towns would also be running on that schedule. They don't, and end at 10 p.m. 2. If I had known the buses between towns ended at 10 p.m., I would have ended the date earlier and gone home. 3. I assumed that he was going to drive me home because A. He only mentioned not being able to pick me up, and B. He's driven me back before on previous dates. 3A. I am not taking advantage of him as I've also paid for dates, and if I had a car, I'd have no problem driving to him. 4. I was disappointed that he didn't drive me back, but the real kicker to me was that he didn't even wait for my Uber to show up. That was kinda the final nail in the coffin. In the comments, Meet More Boop Boop Beep says, I was at a show a few weeks ago, and a group of girls that I just met, like 20 minutes prior, all waited for my Uber with me because it was late and nobody else was on the street. This guy's an ass. That's exactly what you should expect from decent people, even strangers. The guy's behavior was a huge red flag. Yeah, basic decency is not optional. He completely failed that test. He doesn't like you, and he doesn't care about you at all. Yeah, I would have just gone to her town, or scheduled the date for when I don't have work the next day. Definitely an asshole move, and you should move on. Girl, if a man can watch you struggle to get home late at night and not even pretend to care, he's not someone that you need in your life. Ditch him. You deserve way better. If he can leave you stranded at night without a second thought, imagine how little he'll show up when life gets really hard. Cut him off, babe. Not the asshole. The fact he did not care to wait for you to get into the Uber safely is the dagger. I would advise, if you were depending on someone to drive you back, forward/around, communicate it beforehand. You will end up in safer situations more often. I hate to be the one to say that assumptions make an ass out of you and me because I really feel like it shouldn't apply in a situation like this. Because yeah, I feel that. Hashing all those details out before the date to be like, okay, so I'm coming to your town. How am I getting home? What time do the buses stop? Are you cool to drive me home and everything like that? It does ruin the vibe of nice dates. But I really do think this guy's an asshole for not driving her back. And yeah, on top of that, not waiting with her for the Uber. I know it's a cliche term, but driving a woman back that you're on the 4th or 5th date with should be a bare minimum if you want to be with this woman. I feel like that shouldn't even be cliche at this point. That's just advice. That's just common sense. So no, OP, don't feel bad about it. I don't think you'd be the asshole if you broke things off with him. I genuinely don't think he likes you, because no good man, no person at all that likes you would just abandon you like that and show such carelessness. So yeah, take it as a warning of things to come if you were to potentially continue things with him, and I say break it off. And now, onto the update. I didn't expect so many comments on my last post, but they were appreciated. Comments from incels were disregarded and laughed at, including some guy who commented probably 15 plus times, but otherwise I got a lot of good advice. To address a few points, 1. I originally thought that he would be driving me home since he's done so before when it was late, but it was in my town. This assumption was reinforced when he only mentioned not being able to pick me up, but nothing about dropping me off. If he had said that he couldn't drive me back, I would have just budgeted differently or left earlier to make the bus. Buses around my town run until 12 a.m., but the bus between towns stops running at 10 p.m., which I hadn't known. I did not go in knowing that the buses had stopped. If I knew that he wasn't planning on driving me back, I would have double-checked about the bus schedules and paid more attention. 2. I take the blame for not confirming with him about driving me back. I'm not really that upset that he couldn't drive me back, though I was in the moment. I did, however, expect some kind of concern over how I was going to be able to get back, and at the very least, for him to stay until my Uber arrived. Also, for those who blamed me for getting stranded, I wasn't stranded. There was no question about the Uber, but I just would have preferred not to, as it put a dent in my finances. 3. On the issue of me being a gold digger or taking advantage of him, I've paid for dates before. If I had a car, I would drive to him. He was the one who suggested the location and time for this date, so I had no problem catching 2 buses over. And in response to an annoying comment about gender, if the roles were reversed, I would have driven him back. If I was too tired or didn't want to drive at night or something, there is no question that I would have waited for his Uber and paid half of it. That's just basic decency. Not really sure where the comments whining about equality were coming from, as I would have paid half and waited whether I was with a man or a woman. I think I've addressed the main points, so on to the update. So the date happened on Tuesday night. I took an Uber back and got home at around midnight. He texted me around 20 minutes after, asking if I got home safe. I didn't respond as I was exhausted and honestly just wanted to shower and sleep. Throughout Wednesday, he sent me a few memes in the morning and afternoon, and then stopped texting. Wednesday evening, I posted my first post, and after that, later at night, he asked if I was mad at him and that he'd just been tired. I finally responded and told him that I wasn't really mad that he didn't drive me home, especially it's true I didn't confirm, but I was just disappointed since I wish that he would have stayed for the Uber to show up at least. Like, did I wish that he drove me home? Sure, but not really that big of a deal that he didn't. The part where he left me at midnight in an unfamiliar place was kind of the kicker for me. He's a lot bigger than I am, and I would have felt a lot safer with him there. Once again, he said he was just tired and wanted to go home, and said I ended up okay and that it was fine. Honestly, if he had done a real apology, I probably would have given him another chance. When I didn't respond to what he said, he kind of moved on and said he already had a place to take me to next time. Some restaurant a few miles from his house. He said let's do a reservation at 8 p.m. on Saturday and then go out for drinks and then a movie. I kind of wanted to be petty and ask if I should start saving up for an Uber back already, but eventually I just told him that his actions from Tuesday made me feel very uncared for, and that I wasn't really interested in going out with him for a 6th date. He immediately started asking if I was serious, and that if he'd known that it was such a big deal, he would have stayed for the Uber. This annoyed me, since how did he not know it was a big deal? Why did it not occur to him in the first place that leaving me alone at midnight in an unfamiliar public plaza with bars everywhere might be an issue for me? And that he really liked me and didn't want this to ruin things, etc., etc. He even promised to drive me home next time, but I kinda just wanted to wash my hands of this whole thing. I don't want him to feel forced into driving me, and I don't want him doing things only because he thinks he has to. And I don't want to be dating someone who doesn't even think twice about leaving me stranded, buzzed, somewhere unfamiliar at midnight, and then only texting me like an hour later. He's still texting me, but I haven't opened those messages yet. In the comments, Sunshine and Murder says, "You dodged a bullet. If he is this inconsiderate this early on, it's not going to get any better. Cut your losses." Yeah, early signs like that rarely change. Someone who can't consider your safety or even stay a few minutes sets a pretty clear precedent for how they'll treat you later. I think he was a complete inconsiderate idiot, but I think he can learn and change. I can think of a lot of things that I did when I was younger that I would absolutely not do today. Maybe he just needed that one major F-up to learn his lesson for the next person he dates. OP won't benefit from it, but at least he's not her problem anymore. I would just reply, if you couldn't see that leaving a woman alone in a strange place in the middle of the night would make you an undesirable partner, perhaps you shouldn't be dating. And to answer your question, really, I'm no longer interested. Please stop reaching out to me. If I knew that you'd stop seeing me over it, I would have stayed for your Uber. Okay, but you should have stayed because you cared and wanted me home safe, not because you lose pussy privileges when you don't. Can you imagine the life that you'd share with someone like that? Every normal courtesy is something that he'd be unwilling to compromise on unless he is the one who suffers a consequence. I went on a dinner/movie date with someone a few years back. We met at the restaurant. I left my car there and carpooled to the theater. It was December, sub-zero temps, and he brought me back to my car. I hadn't even unlocked the door when I realized he was already turning out of the parking lot. He didn't even hang back 60 seconds to make sure that my older car started in sub-zero temps. There was no next date. It's just situations like that I think are warning signs about what a partner could potentially be like in the future. And not making sure that your car starts in sub-zero temps is crazy work. I would hope most normal people with a thinking brain would be like, oh, there is a possibility the car doesn't start. I might need to hang back and make sure that they don't die of, exposure to the cold. I get that people can overlook those things and mistakes do happen, but surely not when it's someone that you were trying to date, that you were trying to make a permanent fixture in your life. Still not the asshole for OP in this situation. I feel like he's just making excuses. He's like, oh, well, if I knew that it would have been a problem, I obviously would have stayed out there with you. Okay, but too little too late. That's what happens when you don't use common sense, when you don't have some awareness about you that your actions really messed with OP, buddy. Just life doesn't work like that. If she doesn't want to give you a second chance, you don't get a second chance. She gets to move on from you, and you get to learn from this experience as to what not to do next time. Thank you for the story, OP. Thank you for the update. I'd love to know what you guys think of this one down below in the comments. Our next post is by user Ocean Waves, and it's titled, "Am I the arsehole here for making my son and his wife pay for their room in my house? I, 38 female, live with my son Jack and his wife Georgia, both of whom are 21. I provide them with the master bedroom so they can live in private while I take the guest room. I clean, sometimes cook, and do all of the bills. The only thing I ask of them is $10 from each of them per week. My son says that I'm being unreasonable, and since he is my son, he shouldn't have to pay his hard-earned money to me, his own mother. I'm only asking for $10 from them though. Am I the arsehole here?" In the comments, Spite Weston says, "You're the arsehole, but to yourself for babying 2 fully grown adults and letting them leech off of you." I wouldn't say that she was the arsehole, maybe too soft-hearted. If OP's son and daughter-in-law don't want to pay $10, They have to go pay hard-earned money to someone they don't know. Mum needs to dish out some tough love. You're the asshole if you don't at least start charging them 1/3 of all house utilities, since they're so ungrateful to be charged a mere $40 a month. Yeah, and that 1/3 of rent also. Snapping on your mum who is willing to offer her bedroom for their comfort, and she's doing that for $40, is absolutely mad. Mum is too kind, and her son is taking advantage of it. Not the asshole, but how did you come up with $10 a week? That's like an allowance for a 9-year-old, not rent. Do you really think $40 a month in exchange for room and board makes you the asshole? What the hell? You are the reason your son is acting entitled. Grow a backbone and teach your son some responsibility. If they don't pay, they don't get to stay. Everyone sucks here, you for not parenting, and your son for being entitled. I mean, people are having very extreme and emotional reactions to this. Sure, it could be OP's fault for not parenting properly. I can see that happening. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to look after your kids and help them get a house deposit together as fast as possible so that they can buy a house, they can start a family, they can have a foot up in life compared to everyone else around them. That is something a lot of people do for their kids, and that to me sounds like what OP is trying to do in this situation, though we don't have enough information to glean that. I'm just assuming. Who knows the real story, but $10 is nothing. You making your son and his wife pay rent for the master bedroom is completely understandable, and his reaction is not understandable. I don't think you're the asshole at all, but I'm curious to see what you do about this. And now, onto the update. I am back. Thank all of you guys for your comments. So, I'm friends with George's mum and dad. I've been over to their house a few times, and it's pretty large. 2-story, 5-bed, 4-bath mansion living, basically. I told them how my son and Georgia are looking for an apartment at the very least, and asked if they could pitch in. Well, it turns out that they thought the apartment that I lived in was their apartment. They said that Georgia had told them that they were having me live with them because I couldn't afford a place of my own. I work full-time in a very stable job. So I confronted my son and Georgia last night at dinner. My son didn't know that Georgia had said this to her parents and was mad at Georgia for telling lies about me. Georgia basically said that I was desperate for money since I was making them pay in my shabby apartment. So yeah, I'm pretty ticked off at Georgia, and I'm sure my son is too. I don't know if I'll make any more updates, but I wanted to make this one since I feel like it related to the story very well. As for my son having to pay rent, he did end up coming to me last night after Georgia went to bed and apologized for himself and Georgia, saying that looking at places to stay was making her stressed with all of the money that they'll have to be spending in the future. In the comments, friend Lily says, "This is a sad update, OP. You need to kick them out. They are both disrespecting you over and over again." Yeah, it's not just about the money anymore. It's about respect. If Georgia is willing to lie to her parents about OP and talk down on the person giving them a roof, that's a huge red flag. The son apologizing is good, but unless boundaries are set, this pattern will keep repeating. Exactly. An apology only goes so far if the behavior doesn't change. Georgia's lies already caused damage to OP's reputation, and that kind of disrespect can't just be brushed off. Oh, hell no. I'd have kicked little Miss Georgia out on her peach. That level of disrespect doesn't get tolerated. You give them, her, a firm out date. Yup, she wantonly lied, so she is no longer welcome there. She can go ask for help from her parents. You need to tell your son that the gravy train is over, especially with the lies that his wife, not girlfriend, is telling. He needs to pay 2/3 of the rent and all utilities going forward, or kick them all out. Do they work? So what do they do with all of their money? Or are they just freeloaders and living off of you and not working? At the very least, kick the girlfriend out. She has a place to go. Half or 40% is fine, but those stupid kids playing house need to give up the master. Personally, I wouldn't let Georgia stay there anymore. If my house is so shabby, then she can go stay with her parents. I hope that OP comes back and tells us that she kicked them out, or at least just, Georgia out of the house, because that is incredible to do that. Let me just spit on the hands that feed me. Ew, this disgusting shabby place that I refuse to even pay $10 for the privilege of living in the master bedroom of. Yeah, I'd have some fighting words for her. And I'd have some fighting words for my son too, for knowing that this happened. He had to have known about this, and why did he keep this from OP? Why was this such a despicable secret that you had to go behind my back, fight me on the $10 rent that you didn't want to pay, and then just keep this from me? Interesting. Not the arsehole, OP. I'm sorry that you had to find out this way. That's incredibly disrespectful, and I hope you do something about these two. I don't think they deserve your kindness and generosity anymore. Our next post is by user Independent B, and it's titled, "Am I the jerk? My fiancé told me, this is it, take it or leave it, so I gave him the ring back and told him to get out of my house. My fiancé Tom, 37 male, and I, 28 female, have been together for 2 years. He moved into my house 6 months ago and proposed a month ago. I thought we were solid, but now I'm questioning everything. I inherited a fortune 3 years ago. It changed my life, but I live below my means. I work part-time as a teacher, travel, and have a non-profit in the works. I budget carefully so the money lasts. Only my dad and sister know the full amount. When Tom moved in, I paid everything except most groceries. He wanted us to eventually buy a bigger house together so his dad could move in. I said no to living with in-laws, but suggested maybe a separate unit someday. He pushed back, but agreed that we need to discuss finances first. Tom earns around $10,000 per month and has $100,000 saved. I have millions invested and about $40,000 per month income from it. When I told him, he was shocked. He said if I have so much, why not just buy the house and cover everything? I explained that just because I can doesn't mean I should. I proposed separate finances, a joint account for expenses, and splitting costs proportionally to income. I also told him that I wanted a prenup. That's when things blew up. He argued that we should be equal partners, meaning I buy the house in both our names, even if he doesn't contribute. We fought about this for days. Eventually, he gave me an ultimatum. Final offer, you buy the house, we each own 50%, I'll sign the prenup, take it or leave it. I asked if that meant breaking up if I said no, and he hesitated, but said yes. So I left it. I took off the ring and told him that it was over and that he needed to move out. He backtracked, saying he didn't really want to end things, he just wanted me to agree. He accused me of throwing away our relationship for money. I told him he threw it away by demanding that I fund our life and give him half of the assets that I worked to protect. Now I'm wondering if I sabotaged my relationship. I love him, but I don't think it's fair to bankroll a grown man or accept ultimatums about my own money. Am I the jerk? Edit. When we first started dating, he understandably questioned how I managed my lifestyle on a teaching salary. I explained that I had a small inheritance which allowed me to buy my house and have some savings to live on. I admit that I may have been wrong to be vague, but at the time we were just starting to date and I wasn't comfortable sharing all the details yet. My house is nice, but is nothing extravagant, and during our relationship, we always split expenses 50-50. Dates, trips, everything. When he moved in, I offered to keep covering the utilities, since I was already paying them, and he would handle groceries. Things were fine until after we got engaged. I pushed for us to discuss everything openly before marriage, and we agreed on most things. About his father moving in, this isn't something he wants right away, but he says eventually his dad would move in so he can take care of him. I adore his father, but I personally don't want to live with in-laws. His solution was that we should buy another house together so he would feel like it's our home instead of him living in my house. I understood that perspective, but the new house would also have to be larger if his dad were to move in, which I'm not comfortable with. About finances, initially, when we discussed buying another house, the plan was to contribute together, but Once we started looking at what we could afford, we had to lay our finances on the table. When he found out my net worth, everything shifted. He said that if we split 50-50, we couldn't afford a bigger house, and since I had the means, I should buy the house myself, but it would still be our house. I told him that whatever amount he contributes would equal his share of equity in the property. Maybe I was naive, but until this point, I never saw signs of him being a gold digger. He never pressured me to pay for things and always split expenses fairly. That's why this change has been such a shock. Right now, I'm locked in my bedroom, and I told him that he can sleep in the guest room tonight, but that he needs to move out tomorrow. We haven't spoken since, and that's where things stand. Thank you all so much for the support and comments, it means a lot. In the comments, OK Celery says, "Not the jerk. He sabotaged the relationship by holding it hostage to guilt you into funding his lifestyle. Facts. A healthy partner would have sat down to problem solve, not try to corner her with demands. He is so dumb. She could have bought the new house and kept it in her name only. What difference would it have made if they were planning to stay together? Dude showed his cards way too early. The first dumb thing you did was tell him the amount of money that you have, because even if y'all do stay together and eventually get married, he's going to be constantly thinking about that money and trying to find ways that he can get as much of it that he can. Y'all gotta learn how to stop running your mouth so much. I understand that you kinda gotta let your mate know a little bit, but he didn't need to know exactly how much money you have. Men can be just as greedy as women. Let a woman find out that a man's got a bunch of money, she's gonna do everything in her power to get as much of it as she can. It's gonna consume her. Men can be the same way. I think you breaking up with him was probably the best thing to do because your marriage will be all about money." OP says, "I agree with you. I normally don't talk about money or share this kind of information, but since we were engaged, I honestly thought that it was only fair for the both of us to understand where we stood financially. I realize now that it might have been a mistake, but at the time, I truly believed that I was doing the right thing for our relationship. It was the right thing to do before getting married. Legally, when you get married, a lot of financial and legal relationships kick in. You have to lay your cards on the table before making this kind of commitment. Unfortunately, large amounts of money can make otherwise nice people crazy. I also came into money. And I'm lucky in that my husband is a reasonable and honorable person as well as being the love of my life. No grasping or ultimatums. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, OP. Your fiancé has shown you who he is. The money revealed his greed. I'm so sorry. Not the jerk. Protect yourself from a lifetime of him caring more about your money than you. Good luck, OP. Sincerely." Married for 29 years, and I have a different opinion. It seems fair to me that a partner would ask to be co-owner of their shared residence once they are married. He offered to sign a prenup, which seems to imply that he is not asking to be recognized as ownership of the other assets. Our family has also benefited from inheritances, and most of us put our spouses on the deed, but the inherited stocks, businesses, and other properties stay in the heir's name solely. I want my husband to feel like it is his home as much as mine, and that should we split, I would most likely give him my share of the home, unless he was abusive. OP says, "I completely understand your point, and that's exactly why I posted here. I do see that he has a valid point in wanting to co-own our home, and I understand where he's coming from, but the way that he brought it up and made me feel like he thinks he's entitled to it, that really bothered me. I worried that he might spend all of my money if I let him. I'm scared that I might be making the wrong decision. On one hand, I feel like I'm protecting my assets, but on the other hand, I wonder if I'm being unfair since he says all he wants is to own our house together. I'm very conflicted, and I really appreciate your comment and perspective." Honestly, the way that he went about it and the way that he gave her that ultimatum, yeah, that was a red flag. That was the mask slipping. That was cruel for him to approach it in this way. I genuinely don't understand his problem. He makes $10K a month. He has $100K saved. He's already, as far as, the general population is concerned, in the upper echelons of society, yet The greed is getting to his head that he's issuing ultimatums like this. That is not someone that is partner worthy, especially in your situation, OP. This was the basis of your relationship. This is where it starts. It can and would only get worse, especially if you were to have kids. I understand that some people are cool with separating the assets and all of the inheritance from their partner, but paying for the house 100%, yet splitting ownership of it 50-50. I understand that a lot of people are cool with it. I respect that you were not, and I don't know if I would do the same, because I feel like that's a foot in the door for dickheads like him that want to take advantage of the financial situation and potentially have them financially abuse you in the future. I think that sets a precedent. If he wants to own 50% of the house, he can pay for 50% of the house. Therefore, it's fair. Therefore, you have a defense. I don't know, just his whole attitude around this whole thing leaves such a sour taste in my mouth. Not the arsehole. And now, on to the update. This morning, I woke up and Tom had made breakfast and asked if we could talk. He said things got out of control last night and he wanted to explain his side. He told me he was upset that I had lied about my finances and felt like I didn't trust him. He said the money difference made him feel that I would always have more power in the relationship and that he might be vulnerable to financial abuse. Oh, really? Oh, he's the one vulnerable to financial abuse. Really? Oh, tell me more. He insisted that he wasn't interested in my money, but wanted to feel that I would choose him over money. He admitted that he handled things badly and should have never reacted the way that he did or given me an ultimatum. He said he felt lost and frustrated. Oh no, my actions had consequences. I'm lost and frustrated. Boo-hoo, little baby boy. The only thing he emphasized really matters to him is his father eventually moving in. They are very close, and he wants to take care of him as he gets older. He apologized, said he didn't want to lose me, and told me he was willing to accept my conditions. I apologized for not being upfront about my inheritance, but I also told him that I wasn't sure I could continue the relationship. His reaction last night felt entitled and manipulative, and I'm afraid he was showing me who he really is. I told him I love him, but I'm worried money will always be an issue between us, and if he's already pushing for a house before marriage, what else might he push for later? I explained that the only way I could even consider continuing is if he agreed to 1. A bulletproof prenup stating that in case of divorce, he only leaves with what he contributed, nothing more. 2. Agreeing to buy a house together, but his equity would reflect his contribution only. I also suggested options like a guest house for his father or a condo nearby, but not living directly with us. 3. Creating a monthly budget where we contribute proportionally to our incomes into a joint account for shared expenses while keeping our separate accounts for personal money. 4. Going to counseling together. He agreed to all of this. Still, I told him that I don't know if I can trust him again and need time to think. He agreed to go stay in a hotel for a few days to give us both space. Right now, I honestly don't know what to do. Part of me sees his point and wonders if he just overreacted, but another part of me is afraid that if I ignore his behavior, I'll be setting myself up for bigger problems in the future. I would really appreciate your help in figuring out where to go from here. In the comments, Only Ostrich says, money doesn't change people, but it exposes their true self. Take that information as you will. It's funny because my relationship mirrors OP's in a lot of ways. I make about half as much as Tom. My partner has several millions of inherited wealth across various accounts and trusts, and when her father dies, she'll inherit around 20 million more, and we are engaged currently. Tom's behavior is very strange to me. Like I said, I make about half as much as he does, about $5,000 take-home per month, but I consider that a good job. I'm a nurse, so I have a lot of security. I'll never be independently wealthy, but I will always be able to afford a modest but comfortable lifestyle. Because of that, I want no part of my fiancé's finances. The house we live in is hers, and I am so fortunate for that because I don't pay rent. I also don't have to worry about major unexpected expenses. Cat needs surgery? Car broken down catastrophically? House flooded? My partner's got it. I cover groceries and pull my weight when it comes to house chores. I keep her informed of how much I have in my accounts, and if she needs me to chip in a bit more, I do, but mostly I can save a lot of it. We have an ironclad prenup in the works right now, and we were both very clear early on about requiring such a thing prior to marriage. I've seen how stressful it can be managing so much money. It's a blessing in our lives, but it's also a huge burden and a ton of work for my partner in a lot of ways. I want no part of that stress. I would much rather support my partner from the sidelines without staking any claim to her fortune, because at the end of the day, I benefit hugely from that fortune, even if I'm not gaining equity on a house or whatever. I don't factor in breaking up because that was never my money to begin with. It's nice to know that despite a wealth disparity between us, we agreed really early on that we would keep our finances mostly separate, responding to each other's financial needs on a case-by-case basis, that we wouldn't fight about money. Over 3 years in, and we've kept up that bargain. I couldn't imagine laying out ultimatums to own a stake in my partner's home, demanding she support my family with her money, etc. It just seems so wildly presumptive, entitled, manipulative, and simply greedy. There is a world of difference between I need financial support or my father will be homeless and buy me and my dad a mansion so we can all move in together. What? No. A guest house is unacceptable even though you've been clear about not living with in-laws. As if being rich means you can't have boundaries around how you want to live your life? Fuck this guy. Or rather stop fucking this guy and find somebody who doesn't care about your money. When I picture Tom in this story, I see Abu in the Cave of Wonders salivating over jewels. Abu isn't evil or anything, but boy does he let greed fuck everything up for him and his friends. I get the sense that while OP is important to Tom, a huge part of him is prioritizing extracting a good financial situation out of the relationship rather than just maintaining the health of said relationship because it's important to him. It's fishy to me because it's exactly the opposite instinct that I have with my partner. I simply don't care about her wealth, outside of it being extremely convenient in the case of true emergencies. All I want is a healthy, loving relationship with this person, and I am so lucky to have that. Why would I demand more? Tom is a fool for pushing his luck, and I just do not understand that motivation and have no explanation for it aside from a good old-fashioned greed. It also says so much that he accused OP of lying about her finances. Newsflash, Tom. Many wealthy people keep it a little low-key because people get weird when they know that you have money, like you are doing now. The dude makes $10K a month and is worried about being financially abused? Well, but see, if the female earns more than a male, his pee-pee shrinks. Well, that's weird. My wife makes more than me and it makes my pee-pee grow. One thing that kept sticking out and bugging me about this, OP's like, I don't want any in-laws living with us. And he's like, well, we'll just get a bigger house. That pattern just kept repeating. OP never said, the house is too small for your dad. She kept explicitly saying multiple times she didn't want his dad living with her at all. And every time, he just blasted right past that objection. I think it does a lot to show what amount of respect the ex actually had for her as a person. These comments spoke to me, and I feel like they got to the heart of the situation, and I don't think OP should keep him around. I think it was stupid of her to give him a chance in this situation, while I understand why she did it. And when you're caught in the middle of this very emotional predicament with someone that you were very much tied to and enmeshed with, I don't blame her. It is natural to want to work these things out, but in all of that, with her being caught in the middle, it appears as though she doesn't have the perspective of, he keeps brushing off the dad thing. That is something that he is railroading and not respecting my objections over. And the money situation is a huge red flag. Why would I want to fix this with him when it can only get worse based on how he suddenly switched up when I told him how much money I have. I really hope OP reads all of the comments, digests all of that information, and makes the correct choice in leaving his ass to protect herself from him. He's projecting, saying that, oh, I think you're gonna financially abuse me. Brother, hell nah. That's what you're doing to her, you fuck. Get him away from you, OP. I'm sick of this man. I'd love to know what you guys think of this story. Please let me know in the comments down below. Let's go. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to end today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.